But oh my gosh, meat based number 5.
Meat base 5. Can you believe it?
I can, because this is like our favorite thing to do.
But yes,
It's kind of therapeutic as well. Uh, yeah. Should we just get into it? Oh my gosh.
let's jump right in. So
Um,
I think on your side, I suppose you got
mhm.
some news for your for the world and the general audience. What's happening on your
The
side, Nicole?
world.
The world.
Yeah. So we made the crazy decision, not so crazy decision. We're gonna be moving back to the US. My husband and I and our 2 dogs. Um, we just got here to Amsterdam and we've only been here for about 4 months. Um, However, as you know, Josh, right? Because you were in Amsterdam and now you're in South Africa. Like when I first got here in September, everything was open. Everything was more open than it was in California, right? Like it felt very free. And I was thinking to myself, oh, you know what? Like, I don't think the government's going to do lockdown. Like they get it. They get that lockdowns maybe don't work and they just want people to be more free and they want to maybe have what's going around run its course, like, the flu or like a cold or, you know what I mean? I was like, oh, like they're not going to do lockdown because they're already way past that. Of course, as we knew, like the last 8 weeks have been a restricted type of, lockdown, right? So things were closing at 8, right? Everything closed at 8 p.m. Then everything started closing at 5 p.m., right?
Mm.
Um, so that was like, okay, right? I wasn't like too concerned. And then everything closed, like museums were closed, everything was closed. My sister was supposed to come out and visit us, right?
Mm.
And her, she had to cancel her flight because who wants to fly to Amsterdam and just like walk the canals? Like, yeah, it'll be
Yeah.
beautiful, but could you imagine?
There's like absolutely nothing to do if like everything's closed.
Yeah, exactly. Like, so we've been locked down now for like almost 2 weeks. And I made Taylor and I, like, we knew that this might happen, right? Like, we weren't naive to the fact that, Europe is a socialist country, right? Europe has a lot of government control, just in general, a lot more than the US, right? And we knew there was a possibility that lockdowns would come back and they'd be like stronger than ever, right? So we knew this might happen and we were willing to take the risk. So here we are. And I can tell you, like, this episode is all about mental health and mentally how I felt in March of 2020 when the lockdown started. Like, I developed really bad anxiety. And that's when I started my carnivore journey at the same time. So I have no idea how bad my anxiety could have gotten,
Mm.
because I was doing everything like working out, doing carnivore, doing all these things to limit that amount of anxiety, depression, etc. Right? Like I always wonder how bad it would have gotten. But I told like Taylor and I told people and I said, hey, like I can't do lockdowns again as long as there's places open in the US where I can just live my life and not have to worry about, being locked down again for unforeseen future, then I'm
Mm.
going to go there. And I think it shocks a lot of people. But life is short, man. Like
Mm.
I don't want to be like trapped somewhere and, life pass me by. I don't know if you can relate to that, but
Yeah,
yeah.
it's actually crazy. And I like what you said. I kind of want to touch on this a bit further in this episode, but you said how bad your anxiety could have been. I kind of like that because I think what meat based for me, certainly carnivore, has allowed me to sort of like ride the wave of uncertainty in the world with a lot more ease. It's not to say it's easy,
Yeah.
but I think if I wasn't meat based and I wasn't mentally there and I wasn't feeling good and energized, it would be a lot more difficult to 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 really handle everyday stress. And I'm not saying that I get it right. Like there's days when I feel this blanket of uncertainty just like wrapping over me, and but it certainly makes things a lot easier. And yeah, I mean, I moved to the Netherlands beginning of this year, also during a snowstorm lockdown. Nothing was open. staying with some
Fun
creepy older
times.
dude. Fun
Oh
times.
God.
Yeah, good times. If you want to listen to some of that, I think in Meat Based episode 1, I think we spoke about a bit of my adventures when I got there. But I really do sympathize with you, and I think nobody can object to the idea of you wanting to move back to the States. Not only that, but like you said, life is short, and you got to spend it with the people you love, doing what you love. And if it feels right, then yeah, I think it's the right thing to do.
Totally. And I think we're also trying to be preemptive to the fact that these lockdowns are most likely going to continue, right? Because people were assuming that lockdowns were going to happen. Do you remember that? Like, I think we were like still going to the sauna, like all of that. So, two things that I can tell you right now that really help is the sauna, which we've talked about on here. Like, the
Mm,
saunas are closed. And like, that is like my 30 to 40 minutes, depending on how much I want to take. That is so therapeutic for me. Like, get in there and like sweat and like feel the heat, sweat out toxins, like everything that does, it's like therapeutic to me. So like when
yeah.
we're in lockdown and like those types of services are gone and you can't use them, I'm like, dude, like what? Like, come on. Like,
Yeah.
it's so
And
weird.
what
Like all the
else is
coffee
coming?
shops are open,
Yeah.
by the way. Like all the coffee shops are open. And they say it like, I understand people like marijuana to chill and like chill out, but like also like I'm pretty sure because we like walked through, like the red light district is still open as well. So like coffee shops and red light district are open, but like everything else like is like closed for the most part. Like gyms are
Mm,
closed. Like it I tend to be on the thought that like our lockdowns doing more damage than good.
mm, mm. For sure. For sure. And not only that, like you said, I think it's just a sign of more to come.
Yeah.
I'm not even talking about lockdowns now. I'm talking about, forced QR codes and certificates that you would have
Yeah.
to carry around soon is probably going to be coming to Netherlands, and they're probably going to be following suit with Austria and Germany and things like that. I'm not too sure,
Definitely.
but like you said, if your gut's saying you need to do something, just do it, and it's probably for the
Yeah.
best. So yeah.
Oh, totally. So like I just want to let people know like we're so excited. Like we're not bitter, we're not
Mm,
angry, like we're honestly just like excited. Like does it suck? Yeah, like I wish I could stay here for a long time and enjoy the city and not have lockdowns or this this pandemic situation upon us to kind of ruin that experience a little bit, but like we had a great time here. It's just like moving forward, like mentally, like I can't do it.
yeah.
I can't do it also thinking about how much worse things are going to get and like how long this is going to last. Like I was actually
Mm,
talking to my brother and he's like, you should just stay till summer when it opens all back up. And I'm like, so I'm like right now committing to like 5 months longer or 4 months longer that I'm going to be in lockdown. Like, no,
mm.
bro, like what?
Yeah.
So I was just going to say like, also, one other thing, just like, I guess like going into this, because every time like you have a conversation here in the Netherlands, like the virus always comes up, right? Like your opinion or your thoughts about what's going on comes up. And I am so exhausted from this conversation. I'm not saying that I'm being ignorant to the fact that it exists,
Mm,
but I'm just exhausted of like that being the center of like conversations at dinner, conversations here. And like, I think that the media and just people in general, like they're doing a really good job dividing us, right? Like, I don't know about you, but like, I like when I see different opinions.
mm,
Like, that is a good sign when people have different opinions than you. And you're living in a place where people can have different opinions and not be silenced or punished. Like think about the other places in the world, like North Korea, like Russia, like, any of the countries where like China, right? Like you're not allowed to have a different opinion, right?
mm,
Like I'm thankful for that. And like I just try like to listen and understand if someone does have a different opinion, like where that person's coming from. I don't know if
Mm.
you've experienced that, but like, I think we should try doing that more.
Yeah, and to me it sounds like if anything, like coming to Amsterdam was a sign from the universe, just showing you how great America is in general. You know, obviously there's places where there's some turmoil, but I think in general the States has got a level of freedom that like a lot of people sort of aspire to.
Mm.
And this, I think, so that's just what I'm hearing from what you're saying as well. It's just showing you how I think people have this like perception of Europe as well, that again, like what it's one thing visiting there, but I think now it's another thing living.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I don't mean to like shit on Amsterdam or shit on Europe or anything, but I do like the US better. Like there's so many things about Amsterdam and Europe that I love that I think are just awesome. Like, but at the end of the day, like I get more people asking me why the hell I left the US. Like that is the number one question I get. Why the hell would you leave the United States to come here?
Mm.
And like my only answer is like, well, for the experience. Like I had an attachment to Holland, to the Netherlands, and I wanted to come back and work here. It was a once in a
Mm.
lifetime opportunity. But I
Mm.
wasn't thinking that I was going to get more freedom or avoid lockdowns, or you know what I mean? Like I wasn't
Mm.
thinking that. It was more for the experience. But yeah, like every single person I meet are like, what are you doing here? Like, so when people say that to you, you're kind of like, okay, there's something trending here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, because the visa situation too, like if you're a European EU citizen, right? So I do like a lot of hiring for a lot of big tech companies in the US, specifically one, but we won't name which one. But I can tell you is that we don't hire from EU. The visa is really hard to get in the US.
Mm.
So you have to be on specific types of visas, and it's really hard for an EU citizen to get a visa like sponsorship to work in the US. So I think a
Yeah.
lot of people would want to, like people that I've talked to really want to go there, really want to be able to work there, but it's really hard to get sponsorship.
Mm.
So it's a good sign though that people want to come to America, right? Like I'm happy about that. That's like a good sign. But I
Mm.
think that everything happening around us, like people aren't friends with people they've been friends with for such a long time because they have different political beliefs now. And I think that's a huge problem. Like, I think, uh, I don't know, like, it's exhausting, and like people can have different opinions and you don't have to hate them. You know what I mean?
Mm.
Like, everyone's going to have different opinions. And I feel like, I don't know if you're listening to this, like, the next time you talk to someone that has a different political opinion, just literally just like take a moment and like actually listen and just like ask questions, like
Mm.
out of just like curiosity for why their view is different than yours.
and and I kind of like this because it also ties into very nicely the whole meat-based life thing that we talk about. It's like people assume there's this, like, going meat-based is this sort of divide that you've wedged in between vegans
Yeah.
and meat-based people, and you're either with us or you're against us, or that sort of vibe. But I've got tons
Yeah.
of friends that are vegan and vegetarian and just follow normal diets. And you know what? The world is a reflection of what's happening inside of yourself. So if you very internally conflicted with yourself, you're gonna find conflict in other people. But what I've
Yeah.
found is as my mental health has gotten better and as I've become more peaceful within myself, I can have um, confident conversations with people that disagree with the way I eat food, and I'm totally
Yeah.
totally okay with it.
Chill.
You know what I'm saying? It's
Yeah.
like I'm totally okay
That's
with it.
actually so true. Like, okay, so I call it being triggered. Like
Mm.
now, since I've been meat based, I feel like I'm triggered less by things. And I know what you're talking about with like internal healing and internal conflict and stuff that's going on with you. But like I have noticed that, and a lot of people I think notice that too, like your mood stabilizes. And
Mm.
when you get triggered, it's right. Like when someone says something to you and be like, vegan diet is the best diet, like meat eaters, you guys are the worst, right?
Mhm.
Like someone says something like that. And like, you know, I mean, maybe right in the beginning, I would have been like really annoyed and been like, God, like, why are they saying that? Right. And now I have like trolls on my page who like say like really mean stuff to me. And I laugh. Like, I don't like, do you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't like trigger me anymore. I feel like the
Mhm.
things that actually trigger us, whether it's like just anything going on, if someone says something to you and that triggers a response from you, which gets you really angry and frustrated, like there is something going on with you that you probably need to internally heal yourself.
Yeah. Should I read, speaking of triggering, should I just quickly read a comment that I got in my blog a week ago
Sure.
from some person?
Yes.
Okay. They made the time to comment. You call a cucumber toxic while you have a big ass picture of a steak on a barbecue full of char, which is carcinogenic. Fact. You have no clue what you're talking about and spreading unhealthy disinfo. There we go. So I just thought
There you go.
I'd randomly throw that out
Oh
there.
yeah, I've had people to tell me to die. Like I've had comments where people are asking me like, you should die. Like you deserve to die for like all the animals you kill. And
Yeah.
I'm just like, you know what? I was like, you're so right. Usually most of the time I do the worst where I go, oh my God, I had no idea. You're right. Like I
Yeah.
should die. Oh, thank you. Like I do that because at this point, like you're not so here's the thing. When you're like arguing or like when someone comes at you in a way that's super aggressive and like telling you to go kill yourself or you know what I mean, like super gnarly stuff, I don't engage because I know that that person is so far gone and has so many probably internal things that are going on and they're miserable that
Mm.
they need to comment and spread hate on other people's stuff.
Yeah. Well, I to be
Right.
honest, I just sent a big heart. That's what I do these days. I just sent a big
Oh, I
heart.
love that.
And his next comment was such bullshit. Let me know when your cancer sets in. So I just sent him another heart.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. That's so cute. Yeah. I'm all about kill them with kindness.
Mhm.
But depending on what someone says every now and then I'll do sorry, I just like dropped my mic, huh? I'm free balling my mic. So um yeah, every now and then like I'll have a sarcastic response back because I just laugh, but most of the time I won't respond. That
Mm.
kind of like, I guess, brings me to the next thing I wanted to talk to you, just like a real life experience, like in person that I wanted to bring up. I was at a dinner party a couple weeks back and there was this girl and she was talking. There was about like 8 of us and most of them, like Taylor and I, were kind of like the guests that were like meeting everyone for like the third maybe fourth time or something, right? We're not like super close. And this girl was talking about someone that she politically did not agree with, and apparently this person that she did not politically agree with got COVID and he died. And her comment was that this person deserved to die. And she was laughing. That I literally was like, I was taken back, right? So my first thing is like, okay, like if someone's actually to the point where they're laughing because another human being has died and it's
Mm.
over having a different political belief, then this person has some internal stuff, some internal struggle that's going on. Like I do not want to engage. So then my little radar where I ignore the troll or I ignore the person saying something. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to walk to the bathroom, let Taylor just sit there and smile. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to just walk to the bathroom and just use the bathroom and come back, because this conversation will be over by then.
Mm.
So, okay. So like it ends and like, it's all fine. And like, I was like, we were driving home and I was like, dude, like I looked at Taylor and I was like, why would that girl say that? And he's like, I don't know. Like, I honestly think she's lonely and like, I feel bad for her.
Mm.
And I was like, oh, okay. Like, yeah, like I can see that. Like, and I agree with you. And so the more like I thought about this, I ended up reading something in my book. And one of the things I read in my book was do not lie. And if you think about that at face value, do not lie, right? Like, don't tell lies. It's not a good thing to do. But
Which
at
book
the
is
same
this?
time, it was saying, this is Jordan Peterson's 12 rules of life, right? So one of his rules is do not lie, right? Like super basic. And I was reading this chapter like a couple days ago, and God, one of the things was just talking about how if you lie or if you let little lies go unnoticed or you don't say anything or you would omit the truth or whatever, right? Like if someone does something really bad and you don't correct their behavior or reach out and say something, then like you're just as bad as that person because you're letting them say something that's super horrible and
Mm,
evil, right?
mm,
Like that's the gist. So like in my mind, I was like, oh my God, like I should have said something. I was like, dude, like I should have said something. Like, I'm sure that girl has never had someone say something back to her and be like, hey, dude, like you really like that's not cool to like laugh at someone dying. Like, I don't care who the person is, but like that's not
mm,
cool. Like, even something as simple. So, anyways, my point is that it's haunted me that I haven't said something and that I chose in that situation to walk away. Right.
yeah.
Um, so I don't know, like, yeah.
And also like that's a good point because you don't have to, it doesn't have to be a confrontation. I think a lot of people confuse, you can say something to her without it being this like confrontation. There's ways of saying you could,
Totally.
yeah, you could get your points across without having to be like, hey, like what the fuck did you just say? Like that's
Oh, no,
just
no,
not right.
totally.
What I'm
You can
saying?
like literally, I think about what I would have said to her,
Yeah.
and I would have just said something like, hey, like, I bet have been like, just, dude, that's not cool to like laugh at someone dying. Like, they're
Mm,
human, you
mm,
know? And then I was like thinking in my head, I was like, dude, how do we get to where we are, where it's
mm,
okay to like make jokes about killing people that you don't like because of their political beliefs, to laugh when someone that's from a different political party dies? Like, I'm like, whoa, dude, like, what? How far have we fallen? Do
mm,
you know what I mean? Like, it like honestly, like, I don't know. I just think about that. And Jordan Peterson ties certain things with the lies and the lies compounding, the little lies, right?
mm,
And all those compounding. And then you have the Holocaust. Like, and then Nazi Germany has like taken over. You know what I mean? So he basically makes, I can't really go too far into it just because it's hard to regurgitate his whole premise and everything. But basically, these little lies, they compound. So even if you think you're telling a little lie, if
mm,
everyone during that time in like Nazi Germany was telling these little lies, they're going to compound. And that's how, that many people die, or that's how genocide happens, right? Because you tell yourself, oh, it's okay. Like, it's not hurting anyone. And it's like, you chose to look the other way. So they're still omitting the truth and
mm,
ignorance, right?
mm.
Um, so yeah.
Uh, I mean, you know, I read something the other day that like things like, suicides are just up like by a crazy percentage. And I mean, this is a bit of a segue, but not really. But a lot of that can be tied to the mental well-being of the person and how they're
Yeah.
feeling. And I know this episode is predominantly, on the things that myself and you do to sort of keep us sane and especially during these crazy times. So like what are the things that you you do besides the sauna? I know you mentioned the sauna, but is
I
there other
know.
things
I
that you've
know.
done to sort of keep that mental well-being like thriving at the best pace possible? I'm not too sure.
Yeah. And just like one last thing, just I have a couple things, but one last thing about that girl, like you obviously can tell if someone is wishing someone else death, that like their mental health is probably not good, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because that's kind of a crazy thing, right? Like I'm telling people now, like if you want someone to die, you need to look inwards and see what's going on with you. That's
Mm,
all I'm going to say. Like look inwards, see what's happening. But things that you can do, I think, and have really helped me is like, I know people are going to like maybe roll their eyes, I don't know, but structure. Structure is something that really helps me to stay on top of things. Structure is something that's always there. My routine is always there. I can always count on my routine, even when shit hits the fan. Right. So I think waking up at the same time every morning, Always having a protein and fat dense breakfast really helps stabilize my mood. And then also like getting any sun exposure. Sun exposure, obviously in the Netherlands, not really possible. But if you're in a place where you can get sun, like right before we moved to the Netherlands, we would like lay out like every day, like for probably like 30 minutes to an hour in San Diego. And it was just like, it was amazing. Like the sun is like this superpower that gives you this positive like energy and like it's incredible, right? But yeah, so those are some things right now, like nutrient dense breakfast. So like
What is that?
eggs and some
Okay.
protein.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
was gonna ask
Eggs. I
that.
eat eggs every morning. Yeah, eggs. So do you. Eggs for sure. You wake up at the same time as well. So we have that in common.
Hmm.
Working out every day. Like I would say every day helps me. Well, I'm doing, the 75 hard program. So I have to do that twice a day. But yeah, like and getting outside, like I think is just huge. Do you have any like other ones that people can do?
Yeah, I do. I have tons, and what I would say is, first and foremost, I believe in getting, fear is physical, um, and getting into your body is the best way to overcome anxiety in a flash like that. So I
Yeah.
once heard this saying that get in your head, you're dead. So if you sit around on the couch and you think that you're going to think yourself out of your problems, that's not going to happen. I guarantee you, you're not
No,
going to sit there and think yourself out of a problem and get to a
you're going to
point
get
where
more problems.
yeah, you're not going to you're not going to sit there and be like, oh my word, I've got out of my problem. I'm free from my problem. I'm going to go just do
Yeah.
whatever. No, it's not going to happen. You need to do something physical. This is a strong personal conviction of mine, but I do stretching every day. So I use this app called GOWOD. I'll link it in the description after the show. But GOWOD is this CrossFit specific stretching app, which tailors the stretching to my specific needs and my specific weaknesses of CrossFit. But
Oh, that's
I've been
great.
I've been doing it for the last 3 years, and it's like a mixture of yoga and like stretching to the extent that it's so comfortable for me. And I swear to God, it saved me during lockdown because it's like my routine. It's like I train in the morning
Yeah.
and then I do GOWOD in the evenings. And it's a great way to wind down after a long day, especially sitting. When you're sitting on a chair, like your hips get tight and your quads get tight.
Oh yeah, especially men. Men, it's really bad.
Yeah. So that GOWOD app, I mean, it doesn't have to be GOWOD. It can be anything. It can just be yoga, but I highly recommend doing some
Or
stretching in,
just
in the in the
YouTube
afternoon.
videos.
Yeah.
Like just there's so many like if you just look up like 30-minute stretching video on YouTube, like for runners
Hmm.
or whatever you do, right? Like that's way better than like not doing anything. But I love like what you're saying is like the routine. So I think like what I'm hearing is that when we have routines, so like there's so much chaos in our life, right? Lockdowns, can't control that. Can't control my sister canceling her flight, can't control, you can't control so many things. But what you do have control over is your routine, the structure that you put in your life that you can literally just rely on every day. And
Hmm.
like a lot of times when you wake up and you're like, dude, like I'm not feeling it today, like you just have to like push yourself through the motion. And then the coolest part is that like even if you're having a shitty day and you push through just like the motions of your workout or like the motions of your stretching and everything, usually like it'll turn you around pretty quick. You
Yeah.
just needed that workout to feel better and like order and chaos, right? Like that's just, I don't know. Ever since I read that from Jordan Peterson, I'm just like, dude, that's so true. Like in the world of chaos, right? Like things you can't control, like you need order. Like that is the stuff that like de-stresses you and like is like
Mm,
okay, at least I can rely on that, right? Like just
mm.
push through. And I know that sounds like sometimes, I don't know, maybe you do take a break and then try again the next day, but like if you push through, I promise like you'll feel so much better that you did.
Oh yes. Oh yes, for sure. And to carry on the train of the physical, I think me and you have definitely, like, living in Amsterdam, walking is the
Oh my god,
most
yeah.
underrated like
Yeah.
de-stressor there is. Like seriously, if you just go for a walk I guarantee you're going to feel better. Like even if you in a shitty mood, it's just getting out and just doing something
Oh
and just
yeah.
walking. It's like,
When I'm pissed off, I walk. Like I'm like by myself. I'm like, I'm so mad. I'm leaving right now and I'm gonna go do a walk and come back. Like, yeah, like it's I don't know. You're right. Like there's something about it. Like it's like you're outside, you know, you're kind of with nature in the city, but like hiking, I love hiking. Like when I get back to San Diego, because we're going to San Diego first, and like there's hiking trails all near like where I live. And so I'm just like, dude, like I'm so excited to like hit up those hiking trails. I'm gonna pack like my boots. We're gonna go do that. And I'm excited.
nice. I'm super, super
That's
jealous.
one thing you don't. Oh my gosh. Don't be jealous. You're in South Africa for a bit. So you have the
Yeah.
advantage of, enjoying it. But yeah, I don't know. I would say too, like with like any of the apps, like meditating. I know you meditate, right, Josh?
Oh yes.
Like
Like
how has that helped you?
I'm a huge fan of meditation. And in fact, I often tell people it's like absolutely changed my life. And I've been meditating for the last 5 years pretty consistently.
Oh my
Like,
gosh.
yeah. Yeah.
That's a long time. Okay.
Yeah. I've been
Wow, I've
meditating for
been doing
five
it for like a
years.
year.
Mm,
Wow. Okay. That's awesome. But you know what they say that like even if like you're meditating, like it's just like you could be meditating for 10 years and then like all of a sudden like the next day you finally understand something.
mm.
Like it clicks for you or something. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm super, super passionate about this topic. Reason being because I've been doing it for so long. I used to do meditation for the sole purpose to get somewhere, to get a feeling, to sit down and feel a sense of calmness or bliss. But I use Sam Harris's app, Waking Up, and Sam Harris has this lovely way of articulating it: is that if you're sitting down with the goal to have a peaceful meditation session, you're not meditating. You are having a goal.
Uh
your your goal, if there is such a thing for meditation, is to sit down and non-judgmentally just notice whatever comes up and see it for what it is. And there's a huge paradox there, because when you're sitting down and you see and you start feeling anxiety and all these things coming up, lockdowns, vaccine passports, everything just start bubbling to the surface. When you see them and you like pay attention to them, they disappear. It's like
yeah.
somebody that I who's like a mentor to me said to me that something that you're looking at can't hurt you. And I think that's a great way to describe the practice of meditation.
Wow. That it do you use so I know you said Sam Harris Waking Up, which we can probably link in there.
Mm-hmm.
I've also used the Calm app, especially when I feel super anxious. Is that okay? Like when you feel super anxious to like turn on a meditation? Okay.
Oh yeah, yeah. I'm not saying you're not saying you should, but what I'm saying is that there should be no expectation
Oh,
for
okay.
for what the outcome should be. Because I used to, and I think a lot of people do this. I used to meditate with an expectation of reaching like a sense of bliss and calmness at the end of it. And
Oh,
sometimes you can end a session and you can feel a little bit more like you can feel like, okay, there's a lot on my mind right
heavier.
now. But but that's just knowing that makes you more aware, so that when you're interacting with people, you're not being reactive to them. You know what's bothering you. It's not them, it's you. So you sort of like, no, okay, i'm i'm
Oh,
i'm, I'm the one
okay.
feeling a bit anxious right now, not you.
I mean, I've definitely had that where like I've done a meditation and then I'm like, oh, dude, like that did not do what I
Mm,
thought it was gonna do. And that is the problem right there. It didn't do what I thought it was gonna do. Right.
yeah.
Like I need to get better at turning my mind off because as you can imagine right now, I'm like, I just booked flights, right? Like I had to get the dogs approved. There's like I have to sell everything in my house, which we've mostly done. I have to pack everything.
Mm,
So like there's so many things happening in my mind right now. And
mm,
Taylor was like, oh, are you still going to do the podcast today with everything going on? And I was like, absolutely. I was
Yes.
like, I need to like not be thinking about like all of that stuff and like have like a second to like myself and like to have a therapy chat with Josh,
Yeah.
obviously. But
Meat-based therapy with Nicole and Josh.
yeah. Yeah. But I always think about that. And so like I actually used to fall asleep to the sleep stories on Calm, the Calm app.
Mm-hmm.
I know a lot of people have difficulty sleeping. I think that your brain turns on once your head hits the pillow, you like are like, oh, I have 500 ideas, right? Like I hear that a lot from people, or they have to take stuff to go to bed. Like they have to take melatonin every night. I have a friend where like I remember they had to take NyQuil every night, or like sleep ZQuil, which I hope please don't do that. Like there's so many things in it that are so bad for you. Like Tylenol PMs are awful for you.
Mm.
If you have trouble sleeping, try not to take anything. It'll be really shitty for like the first week, probably trying to fall asleep, but then your body will get used to it without it, probably. But like I used to do sleep stories with the Calm app, and you
Yeah.
can choose from like all of these celebrities. And like for some reason, Stephen Fry.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know who that is? Okay. He has like this very distinct voice. And I used to fall asleep to him talking about lavender fields in Provence, France. And like you can like choose a Matthew McConaughey one, right? There's like all of these different types, but I'm just saying like that really helped me, especially when I stopped taking anything, when I like started doing carnivore. I was taking like melatonin like every night. So I eventually like stopped doing that, stopped anything to try to get me to go to bed. And those actually really helped. And like, I
Mm.
honestly can't tell you the second half of the Lavender Field story by Stephen Fry because I fall
That's
asleep
good.
so quickly. Yeah. So Calm app for sure.
Yeah. And I will add that if for some reason you feel you're not comfortable with meditation, and that can definitely be a case. If you feel it makes your situation worse, that's completely okay. Don't do it. What I would suggest
Yeah.
is breathing exercises. That's one of the cheapest things you can do. Like you can do Wim Hof's free breathing exercises on the YouTube on his YouTube channel. They are intense. I've
Can
been
you
doing them
link
recently.
that as
Yeah,
well? I needed to do it because I know here, like, so he's Dutch, I think,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
And so like he's been like making his rounds with like all of the people in the health world. And like
Mm.
recently, that Dutch model, Doutzen, I can't say it. Doutzen. I forget her first name. Anyways, she's like a Victoria's Secret model, but like she started doing it recently as well. And then I
Mm-hmm.
know like he's made his round like Joe Rogan and like all of like the big names, like I've seen him. So like I haven't done it, but like please link it because I want to talk about it on the next episode. Like that's my homework, is to do those breathing exercises because everyone raves about them, right? Tell me.
Yeah, and they are not easy. They are actually really a lot more difficult than I expected. And I'm a pretty fit person, but breathing intensely the way that he describes it, releases, and I think the whole goal is to release carbon dioxide from your body, which which sends you into a state of calmness. I could be wrong on that, but the way he does it is so intense, and you feel so calm afterwards. But when you're doing it, you actually sort of feel like you're dying. Like that's the best way to describe it. Breathing intensely like that sends your
Breathing and
body
dying.
yeah, it sends your body into a state of like into a state of a bit of a shock. You actually want to stop. That's how intense it is. But you just keep going, and once you get past that like initial like first few stages, it becomes easier. But if you don't want to jump into Wim Hof's breathing right away, you can also go download an app called the Oak app. OAK,
Okay.
Oak. That was
Oh,
created by,
okay.
yeah, it was created by Kevin Rose, who's a like a billionaire investor in the States from San Francisco. But
Classic.
he created this free app. They also do meditations on there, but they've got this great like breathing sort of um, protocol where if you're just feeling stressed, like you said, if you're feeling anxiety, you can click it, and then it's sort of like a circle that expands and contracts, and you just
Wait, it's on the
follow.
Apple Watch.
Yeah,
It's literally on the Apple Watch too,
it's very similar
right?
to that. Yeah, so you just follow something
Oh,
as simple as that, like box breathing. So breathing in for 4 seconds, holding for 4 seconds, releasing for 4 seconds, holding for 4 seconds. You just do that for 4 rounds. It can have a huge effect on your nervous system. And what I was initially very reluctant, or like I didn't sort of, I was very apprehensive the effects that breathing could have on my body. But I read the book Breathe by James Nestor, and that changed everything for me. That book, again, I'll link it below.
We're gonna have to link all of this,
Yeah,
like, for sure.
but that book was so insane at describing the benefits of breathing, and specifically through your nose. So
Mhm.
we are designed to not be mouth breathers. We're supposed to be breathing through our noses most of the time. And again, like in the book, he describes like a simple thing you can do is mouth taping. So just getting a piece of tape, taping your mouth shut at night when you sleep. It forces you to
Is he
breathe
the
through.
one? I have a question. Is James Nestor the one who pushed this whole mouth taping
Yeah.
phenomenon that's happening right now?
I think he
Okay,
was the
that
one.
makes a lot more sense. Because there's 2 things that I need to try, and I want to try this before our next episode: mouth taping, and then the is it Hoffman breathing?
Wim
What
Hof.
is his name?
Wim Hof.
Wim Hof breathing.
Yeah.
Okay, so those are 2 things that I'm going to try. Because remember when you said try the sauna, and then I did the sauna and it was amazing. So I'm going to try those 2 things and then get back to you, because I think those are super important and we can link them all in there. Is there anything, one other thing that I just wanted to mention too, that I think it's free, is writing stuff down. Like literally, like during these really stressful times of like moving across the country for the 2nd time in less than 6 months, I like to write everything down. Like before I go to bed, I try to write everything down. I know we've talked about this before, but like you don't have to do it before you go to bed. You can also do it when you are feeling anxious. Like, I remember a therapist. I'm really big on therapy. So also, like, if you can go to therapy and you can find a good therapist, like, I think that's great. I think you should be wary of people trying to put you on antidepressants, of course. But I think that if you can actually find a therapist that you enjoy, that listens, that's able to, you know, maybe get you to realize some things on your own, excellent. But my point of that is that I had a therapist who literally told me, and I don't know why, but like I've always stuck with this. They said, okay, if you're going through a really anxious time and you have so much on your plate and you're feeling overwhelmed and stressed, give yourself 2 to 3 minutes, maybe 5 minutes at most during that day to literally freak out over everything that could possibly go wrong, how you're feeling, the worst possible scenario. Like just dedicate 2 to 5 minutes of that, of a day where like you feel like you have to do that. If you do that and you release that, a lot of times what happens is you actually get to the point where you're like, oh, well, even if that happens, like I'll do XYZ, so it doesn't matter. Right. So your mind will kind of figure it out on its own, that like, oh, that's irrational. Like I can fix that. And then the other thing is that it kind of just gets it out. So then like you don't have to continue to worry about it all day. And maybe that's something that someone works up to, but I think that sometimes helps, that I give myself like in a really stressful time 2 minutes to just like get it out, you know? And then I'm like, okay, moving on. Or you know what? Like I'm going to let that go into oblivion for now. And I'm going to do the task at hand and what I want to do today. Have you ever done something like that? Or
yeah, I feel like a good like release is definitely healthy for everyone. And I've heard a similar thing. It's like allow yourself like the 5 or 10 minutes to really feel your pain and your suffering or whatever's you're going through.
Acknowledge.
And don't let it go past that. So acknowledge it, but then you've got to release it and let it go. And that it's important. But again, that goes back to what we were saying about what meditation and mindfulness does, is it really gives you a chance to acknowledge all the stuff that's sort of coming up for you. So it's a great tool for seeing that.
Humans are really, and humans are so weird. Like you can, I don't know, I was thinking about this the other day, like, you know how things in the past that maybe were traumatic that happened, or who knows, like I know my brain like does a really good job like blocking things out. Like I remember having like a really bad relationship, and there's some things that like I don't remember from it Do you know what I mean? Just because like my brain is like protect, or like, do you know what I mean? Like
Mm,
protect, or, we're going to get this thought out of there. So like,
mm,
I don't know, I'm thankful we're human and that our brains kind of like work like that a little bit to protect us.
mhm,
Um, because like sometimes holding on to those things or holding on to traumas from the past can really, stay with a person for a really long time and affect relationships and affect just everything. I know we talked about like our like trauma with families, and like we're not going to like rehash that now again, but I do think that like, I don't know, like I was thinking about this the other day, and I don't know about you, Josh, but like I really want to have meaningful conversations with people.
mm.
Like I want to like sit down with people and like not talk about surface things, and then just be like, how do you like actually feel? Or you know what I mean? Like, because I feel like people are never honest. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm doing good. Like, when's the last time you honestly answered that question?
Mm,
Like it feels like it's just such a burden to like be like, oh, actually things are not great right now. I'm super stressed out. Like I have a lot of anxiety lately because of this. Like, I don't know. It's just like I always think about, if I was more honest or something, or if other people were more honest, maybe that would be like an ability to get help as well,
mm.
Like, because I think in our culture, we want to like bottle things up and not talk about them because it's like you don't want to be a burden. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. That's kind of the feeling I get, is people don't want to burden others. Like everyone wants to pretend everything's fine. Like what you see on IG is, like what's really going on,
Mm.
or, do you
S-
get that
s-
ever?
Well, I was going to say, speaking of IG, um,
Oh
another one,
no.
another one of the things on my list. I don't know if I mentioned this to you before, but I often do intermittent social media fasting. So
I don't know that. I didn't know you did that.
yeah, so it's something that I would like to think I invented this. I wrote a blog post on it, but I call it intermittent social media fasting. But
Nice. Love
basically,
it.
similar to normal fasting, is that I do not go on social media for the first half of my day. So until 12 o'clock, I don't touch social media. And it's the most peace you'll ever have in your life, because you and
Oh
me,
my
like
God, I'm doing it.
anybody, you like me, like anybody knows, as soon as you open up that IG, it's like opening up Pandora's box. Your mind just gets transported to a different dimension as soon as it's open. So
I
I
actually call it
try,
vortexing.
yeah,
That's the key word, vortexing, because you're
or
literally in a
texting.
vortex that you can't get out
Exactly.
of.
So I try and for the first half of the day, I fast from social media, and it
Mhm.
just gives you a level of peace in that first half of the day that you won't get unless you're not on social media. So I find the intermittent social media fasting is a great way to um, use the great tool of social media, like we do, to sort of grow your brand, speak to the right people. So it's not like abstaining from social media and saying, oh shit, I'm not going to be on social media, but it is a great way to just ensure that it doesn't affect you to the extent that it does. Because one of the worst things you can do for your mental health is wake up, roll over, look at Instagram.
Get on your phone.
If you're
Yeah.
doing that, I can almost guarantee you that you are not going to be in the best place possible.
Well,
I
none
can
of the
guarantee
things
that.
that we're telling you to do are going to help. Like
Yeah.
if you're rolling over on social media, and I'll do it some mornings, and I feel different. The mornings that I do that and I go directly on my phone, 100% I feel different. Honestly, the best mornings I have are when I sleep through my alarm and I wake up really quick and I have to go walk the dogs immediately because I don't get a chance to go on social
Mm.
media. Like,
Mm-hmm.
which is, but I think that if you're on social media first thing in the morning and you're doing all these other things to help combat, anxiety and maybe feeling depressed or feeling different feelings about what other people are doing, and, obviously like comparing and seeing, oh, like they were doing this fun thing last night and like I stayed home and did nothing. Like,
Mm.
okay. Or, I don't know, but I do think that's very important. That's the third thing I'm going to try. So
You got a
I'm
lot of
going to
homework,
do,
Nicole.
I got way too much homework, man. Like I'm all about like kind of accumulating things right now because it helps me to like get my mind off of, like flying away so soon and leaving
Mm.
here. But,
Mm.
I will say I wanted to take a turn a little bit into mental health because I wanted to talk about, we mentioned suicide earlier. And I think that with lockdowns and everything in all countries, a matter of fact, where there have been major lockdowns and stuff like that, there's been a lot of trauma from these lockdowns, a lot of depression. There's, increase in alcohol use, increase in drug use, suicide rate is up, child abuse at home is up. There's so many different things that are happening, which is a lot of the time why, like, I always question, like, how much damage are these lockdowns doing, right? But I think suicide comes up, like, I don't know about you, but like there was someone from my high school that died. I don't know if it was related to lockdown. And then we had someone that was a friend of ours who we lost to suicide as well during the peak of COVID during like November 2020. And like, again, like a lot of times there's no signs or people don't want to be a burden, I think, which is why I mentioned that earlier. So if you are feeling like a certain way, I think it's important to talk to your friends about it, because the more it festers, I think the more worse those thoughts become. And I have had suicidal thoughts in the past. I when I was 15, things were just like, I was out of control. I was such a bad teenager. But I remember like writing like a suicide note, and I was like, oh, I'm done. Like, I didn't have a good relationship with my parents at that time. I don't think I was seeing a boy that was good for me either. And trying to stay in sports, and then like got a little bit into pills a little bit. And I just remember getting to a point where like I just didn't want to live anymore, because I felt like it was just a burden. Like I felt like I would be better off dead. And I knew how I was going to do it. And I just didn't go through with it. Like I just, at the end of the day, like I was just like, no, like I'd rather live, like I will make this better, or like I will, come through it. But there's a lot of people that go through like that thought or that feeling of like being a burden, or like, I don't know, it's hard to, like, I don't know, you just need to make yourself available, I think, for friends, and like know that you're not a burden.
Mm.
I don't know.
Yeah. No, thank you for sharing that. I think it's a super, super important topic, especially during these times. And that's even more reason why it's important, the work that we do, just showing that there are different ways you can manage your feelings and stuff using the mechanisms of meat or movement or mindfulness or whatever you choose to use. But similar to you, I mean, I never wrote a suicide note, but I was definitely suicidal, in the sense that I would occasionally in nights when I was very young. And again, it actually came down to, like you said, parental issues, things, past traumas. But I literally just would sit in bed and just wish I just wasn't here. I was just like, I can't handle this anymore. This is too much for me. Um, uh, so, but one thing, I mean, you mentioned is that it's almost always you are not a burden. That's the one thing you need to remember, is that you're not a burden no matter what.
Yeah.
And secondly is that you need to actually counterintuitively think about the people that you're going to affect by you taking your life, because a lot of
Yeah.
people don't recognize the effect that it has on the people, and the sort of devastation that leaves behind on the people that you love most. You might think
Yeah.
you might think you're doing the world a favor, but in fact you actually could be doing somebody else, like a close family member or a close friend, a serious disservice for the rest of their life, that you could be sending them into a situation. So again, there's two sides to the coin, and it's just something to remember, and yeah, super, super important topic.
Well, what you're talking about too, like it's also like I do think that suicide is extremely selfish. I think that at the end of the day, like the people that you affect and the people that lose you, like it is very selfish. There's no question about that in my mind. But I also think, God, like there's sometimes conversations that you have with your friend, right? And something I've done, and so like people don't think you're a burden, is to like cue it up, right? So sometimes that means, and you like, I'll call my friend and I'll be like, hey, like I need to vent to you about something. Like I'm not really looking for advice. I'm not really like, I really just need to like talk about this and like get this out there and like say my piece on something, right? Like that's like venting, right? That might be complaining, right? At the end of the day. When there's something else, right? Like that's more, I don't know, like more something about like you're looking for a solution, right? Like I don't think that's complaining. I think you're genuinely like looking for advice and like you want to talk to someone, but I don't know, like I feel like there's a stigma with going to therapy, which like I don't think there should be. Like I absolutely love therapy. Like I think I've been in therapy since since my parents got divorced. I was really young. They like sent us to therapy and like I kind of thought at the time I was like, oh, this is kind of crazy. And like people are like, oh, you're in therapy. But like, dude, like it's amazing to like pay someone to like listen to you. So like you don't have to feel like you're burdening someone close to you. Maybe there's some things or some ugly thoughts you don't want to share with like your closest friends. And like that's okay. That's why like, there is therapy out there. And I don't know. I would say like it's super important to go there because even talking it out loud with a stranger, you'll realize something, you'll realize something about yourself or like maybe how you are or whatever. But yeah, like we need to like link like a suicide awareness or like site or something like that. But like a lot of people, I guess there's a certain percentage, don't quote me because I don't know the percentage, but what I was reading from someone that had tried to commit suicide was that he regretted it right after. It was like attempted suicide. And he said that like most people actually strongly regret killing themselves. They're just not alive the next day to do it. Or if they have an attempted that fails, right, then they immediately regret it. Like, and they're so glad that they're alive. So there's a lot of stuff about like the people that have survived suicide attempts are maybe more glad that they're alive when it fails. So I don't know. That's obviously not all of them, but yeah, it just makes me sad that there's people out there that are feeling this way. And like, I just want to give them a big hug and like tell them that like, life is worth living and you're going to get through this. And like, please lean on your friends and family or whoever's in your life to really help you. That's what they're there for. And they will help you.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I know tomorrow is New Year's Eve or day, or what do you call tomorrow? But
It's New Year's Eve,
it's New Year's
NYE.
Eve tomorrow. But
Yeah.
I want to touch on some things around, or myths around resolutions. But before we get there, again, what you said is so important, is that it's also, you're not wrong for feeling that way. It's easy to also sit back and think, oh shit, like I'm having these thoughts about like suicide. I'm like, I shouldn't be having those thoughts. No, it's just a product of the times. We're living in stressful times. The one thing that I will tell you, going forward, is just be kind to yourself. Just be a bit kinder to yourself. Think about one of the best thought experiments that I love doing is think about yourself as an infant, as a baby, as this little child that just wants nothing but love in the world. When you do that in your mind, when you take the time to think about yourself as a child and you send love to yourself as a child, it's easy to have love for yourself now, because you realize that you didn't create you came into this world the way you did. You are who you are. And there's just a level of empathy that you can create for yourself by doing that thought experiment. So anybody who's feeling
Yeah.
seriously anxious, a quick exercise, think of yourself as this child and just send love forward, and it really does help. But
Yeah.
what are your thoughts on New Year's resolutions? Have you ever done them, or do you ever think about them?
Well, here's the thing. So I'll tell you about that. But before we get there, I also just want to mention that obviously eating a meat-based diet, like I don't know about you, I had a huge mood improvement. Like I would go through the bouts of being anxious or being like, I don't know, like holding on to the past and feeling like kind of angry. Like I think I have a lot of anger and I'm a hothead. But like meat kind of stabilizes you. Like I have someone close to me who's bipolar, and they ended up going meat based, and it completely cured their bipolarness, right? Like they have a
Wow,
new
it's amazing.
lease on life, right? Like what you eat matters. Like don't think that what you're putting into your body is not going to affect your mood, because 100% it is. Like everything
Mm,
you eat has an effect on your body. It's not just like, oh, this is nothing bad's gonna happen to me for eating this. It's like, no, dude, like you're gonna have a spike in your glucose, you know, you're gonna have different inhibitors going off, being like, what's going on? You're not gonna be getting the nutrients your brain needs to function properly, right? There's always different things about food, but food really can stabilize your mood, right? Like, why do you think people call it hangry? You know, like
mm,
you're hungry and angry. Like, and I will say too, like Miley Cyrus, a vegan, she talked about how she was vegan for a while and she just couldn't do it, like mentally. She was just at a loss. Like she went on Joe Rogan and talked out about this. We can like link the YouTube of that. But she talked all about this, right? And so she literally had no choice but to reintroduce fish and like salmon and get those like omegas and like all of that into her diet. Like she had to start eating fish again because
mm,
mentally it was just wrecking her. She was like on antidepressants and all this other stuff. So she talks about that, but like there is a link between food and your mood, right?
mm.
How happy you are, like, you know, your depression, et cetera. Like there is a link there. So if you can do something to get that better, like meat based is a great way to go. Like you'll never be hangry, your mood will stabilize. Anyway, but New Year's resolutions, haha. I've made a bunch in my life. I don't know about you. But I like, I don't know, man. Like I like to look back at the year, but I don't necessarily now like make a New Year's resolution,
Mm.
because like, first of all, you never stick with them. And like, I'm also in that Jocko like mode where I'm like, dude, like it doesn't matter if it's January 1st. Like start now, start today. You know
Mm.
what I mean? Like you don't need a new year to start, you know, acting like your best self, or, you know, introducing a new program, or, you know, taking responsibility for your life. Like you don't need January 1st to do that. You
Mm. I
know,
love
pick
that.
any day.
Mm. Yeah,
Yeah.
I super.
That's my thoughts.
I love that. That I mean that's so true. I made one resolution in 2014, but it wasn't a resolution. It was a decision, and
Oh,
my decision was I no longer wanted to be fat anymore, and that
there you go.
decision changed my life. You know, set me on this trajectory that I am now.
Yeah.
But to me, it wasn't a resolution because I decided that I just no longer wanted to be that. A decision for me is so much more powerful, but even more powerful than a decision is just resolving to have awareness and be kinder to yourself. And when you start doing these little things, they add up. You know, you don't need, like you said, you don't need a
Hmm.
special day to step forth into this new threshold of your life. You can do it right now. You can do it right now, and
Yeah.
you can start super small. You can start super small. It doesn't have to be this big grandiose thing. You know,
Do a
if
30-minute walk a day,
yeah,
right? Like
exactly. And
something
it
simple.
doesn't,
Read 10
it can be
pages
as
a day.
simple, yeah, it can be as simple as just putting on your running shoes and walking into the gym. Okay, you can't really walk into the gym right now because all the gyms are closed in Netherlands. But if you're in South Africa, you can put your shoes on and just walk
Yeah.
into the gym. And that is, if you do that, I guarantee you're going to say, okay, I'm here. Let me just walk for
Might as
30
well.
minutes. Might as well. So just getting
Yeah.
started, honestly, getting started is the
Yeah.
simplest thing you can do. That,
That's
yeah.
honestly how I feel. Like I feel like it's kind of it's not a cop out, but it's kind of like, here's the thing. Like if January 1st and having a New Year's resolution, if that is what does it for you and sets you on this path of self-determination, self-discipline, and becoming a better you, by all means, do it.
Mm,
But all we're saying is that today, like
mm,
do it today. You want to start a business? Do it today, right? Why are you waiting till January 1st, right? You want to be a nicer person? Start today. You want to like lose weight? Start today. You know, like it makes it so it's like, oh, you know what? This last month of December, I'm going to eat whatever the fuck I want. I'm going to sleep with whoever the fuck I want. I don't know why I brought that up, but you know, I'm just going to go fucking crazy. And then January 1st, you know, I'm going to be looking for a serious relationship. I'm going to
Yeah.
be eating healthy. I'm going to be like working out 3 times a day. Like it just makes so many unrealistic things. Like in your
You've
life, if you ever
lost, if you're doing
transition to things,
exactly. Yeah.
you have to do it slowly to stick with it, right? Like if you
Mm,
want to get it back into reading, start slow. Do like 5 pages a day. You might actually enjoy it, you know? And then
yeah.
you work up to 10 pages and then lo and behold, you're reading 2 chapters a night or, you
Uh,
know, like little
yeah.
changes, they accumulate.
Yeah. And it doesn't, I know you enjoy your quantifiable stuff, but it doesn't even have to be quantifiable. It doesn't even have to be 5 pages. It can literally just be, if you pick up your Kindle and you look at a word,
Yeah,
you
look at a
have
word.
you've become somebody that has read a word. It's better than the somebody that hasn't picked up the Kindle at all. So make
You're better than you were yesterday, right? Not touching the Kindle.
exactly. Because I find these quantifiable measures can be a huge distraction. You know, to be honest,
Mm-hmm.
I used to crave being 62 kilograms, or I had a specific number that I used to go for when I was younger and losing weight, and I was obsessed with it.
Okay.
I was like, if I'm not 62 kgs by December, I'm a failure. And that just made things so much more complicated. Not only
Yeah.
from the practical side of it, it's like your body sort of changes with muscle mass and losing fat. It just, there's so many different variables. Like try just becoming the person that does something, you know, make that identity
Yeah.
shift, and you set, you're done.
if
2022
you're
is
if here's
yours.
the thing, yeah, and if you're like putting in the work, like you don't probably need to weigh yourself because it's not about that, right?
Mm,
Like for us at this point, it's not about losing weight, right? Like it's more just like about feeling good and putting in the work for a better tomorrow. Like all you have to do, and like again, like the social media thing that we were talking about last time, how like you see someone who's like perfect on Instagram, right? Like you can't compare yourself to other people ever. You have to compare yourself to who you were yesterday, right?
mm,
That's the comparison that actually matters. And if you don't want to, you know how I am. I'm so like numbers driven, but there's also ways to use numbers which are less, hear me out, that are like less I think negative and can send you down a weird path, right? If you're obsessed with weight and you're like, I have to lose this amount of weight, like you said, like that's going to be probably bad because you're going to just obsess and maybe go to the point where you're like super, super skinny because you're just obsessing, right?
mm,
However, if you make fitness goals, right? If you're like, yo, like my goal is I want to bench XYZ by like a certain date, and you don't even have to say that. All you have to do is you have to go there and be like, you know what? I'm going to do a squat right now. I'm going to see how much I can squat. And each week, I'm going to try to build on that squat. You know,
mm,
I'm going to be better than I was last week, and I'm going to continue to build up, and we'll see how this goes. So you
mm,
don't even have to set a number. You just have to say, okay, like my sprint record is this, right? I want to beat that every week. I want to get like 2 seconds, 2 seconds, 2 seconds, right? And improve. So I think it's just like these very, I don't know, like slight improvements. But if you use fitness goals, I think that helps because I think, like you're saying, like weight is dangerous. That's a dangerous, I think, goal at the end of
mm.
the day to use, right? Because, like you're saying, muscle mass, fat, like all of it is different. Like, trust me, I'm in like the phase where like I'm rebuilding muscle right now. And like I'm just at the point where I'm like, dude, like I don't even want to scale in my house because like there's the part of me that's just so curious, like what's happening, you know? Like
Yeah.
but it's fine. But yeah, like I think you have a point. Like use goals that are making you better each day, that are not going to stress you out and send you on a, a negative
Mm,
path, right?
mhm.
Oh, gosh. I will say also one other thing, Josh. I don't make my bed. Does that I mean like I'm like a psychopath?
I know you mentioned this to me.
Yeah. And you're like,
I
oh,
I'm obsessed with making my, well, I wouldn't say I'm obsessed with it, but I definitely am a big
you
fan of
said
making
it.
my bed. Yeah. I think it sets you up for
Okay.
the rest of the day. I was told that once as a kid. Like I never used to make my bed, and then I watched
Uh-huh.
I watched one of those cliche motivational YouTube videos, and the dude was like, if you don't do the dishes, you don't make your bed, how are you going to run a Fortune 500 company? So as soon as I heard that, I was like, oh my word. Like the next day, I just
You're like,
did
that
the
makes
dishes,
sense.
made my bed, and it's just stuck with me now, to be honest. It's just, you know, like I know I've spoken to people that have been in the army. It's just one of those things that, like you said, it's kind of like the light. It's just, it starts your day. It's like, okay, I've made my bed. The rest of my day can go to absolute shit, but my bed is made and I'm going to sleep in it tonight. You know, it's one of those things.
Yeah. I don't know how much I love order. Like, I feel like maybe I'm just in like the anti bed making camp because maybe I just don't want to do it. And maybe I want to prove a point that you can be anti bed maker and you can still have order and structure and be successful. Maybe. I think I'm like trying to like prove a point or something. I don't know.
Yeah. And
But
didn't you also mention that it's like good for airing your bed out or something like that? So
oh my God, Taylor, he goes,
Taylor said,
yeah. Where do you think bedbugs want to live? They want to live in a made bed. If your bed's not made and it like actually like breathes, no bedbugs want to live there because they don't have any coverage.
That was a solid response. Solid response.
Probably a lie, but like I believed him. I mean, I'm not about to go like Google bedbugs. I don't want to see that. And like, you know, but I mean, you gotta admit, he had a good point. Like you like believed him for a second. You were like, oh, like
I was like, yeah,
wait,
it's interesting. But I'm still making my bed.
Yeah, you're like, but you're a little bit like all over the place. But you know me, like he's willy-nilly. Like I have no idea his schedule, anything. And I'm super type A and like structure, like everything has to have order. So I don't know, maybe tomorrow I'll make my bed and see how I feel, if I feel different.
So tomorrow you're making bed, Wim Hof breathing.
I have to like write this down. Wait, I have to write this down.
What else is it? Breathing. What
Who
else
wants
is
to
it?
do this? Does someone want to do this with me and tell me? Like, send me videos of it. Okay, mouth taping.
And I'll link in the description the specific mouth tape that we use. It's called 3M micro pore tape. So I'll link it.
Okay, perfect.
But yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Yeah.
Wait. Sorry, it was make the bed, the breathing, mouth taping, and there was one more. What was the other one?
Intermittent social media fasting.
Oh God. Okay. Yeah.
TM.
Can't wait. Did you just say TM?
Yeah. Gonna trademark that shit.
And oh yeah. Okay. So I'm gonna do that. If anyone wants to join me in doing that, like let me know how you feel. Let Josh know how you feel after doing that. I'm gonna go on the podcast the next time because I usually do these like every 2 weeks. I'm gonna let you know how that went. Like hopefully I don't, you know, eat the surgical tape in my sleep. Who knows? But yeah, I guess, you know, moral of this for mental health, like don't be afraid to say something if someone says something that's truly evil is one. 2, you know, talk to your friends, talk to your family, you know, think about if you might need therapy and, you know, someone to pay to listen to that's, you know, non-biased, that's, you know, kind of removed from your family and friend circle, I think is like, I highly recommend if you can do that, using the apps, the breathing, the social media fasting, TM by Josh. I don't know, anything else like that we covered that just is, love people that have different political opinions, spread more love, you know, don't give in to the divide. I don't know, there's a lot we covered, but yeah, and eat more meat.
Yeah, let's end with that. Eat more meat. Meat heals.
Oh yeah. And then if you're in San Diego, I will see you soon, I guess. So yay.
Super excited
I'll
for you.
miss Amsterdam though. Yeah.
Safe travels.
Thank you. All right, cool everyone. The links will be in the show notes.
Cool. Peace.
Bye. Doei.